When you fall, you have two choices. You can either stay down or get back up. Unfortunately, sometimes you don't always know how to get back up. That's what I'm here for. Take my hand and let's rise together. Welcome to After You've Fallen. Change is hard for everybody, but change is harder if you have a disability. It's even harder if you have brain trauma, and yet even harder if the change is a trigger for your PTSD. Imagine all of the above. This is part of what I've been going through for the last little while, which is why I'm not updating the podcast like I want to. So today, I want to talk about change because, like unpredictability, it is an inevitable part of life. So let's talk about ways that we can deal with it. SciComm.net says that the ability to cope with change is the definition for resilience. I've done an episode on resilience. I've done an episode on unpredictability. Today, I'm going to concentrate on the big unsettling changes. Once again, I'd like to remind you that I'm speaking from my personal experience, and it may not always work the same way for you. If you have any control over the change, there are some stages that you can first go through before enacting the change to help you prepare for it better. These are contemplation and preparation. Contemplation is where you think about making the change and what the pros and cons would be. If you are considering taking a new job, for example, you may have a pay raise with easier hours, but it may also move you further away from family and friends, the support, rhythm, and structure that your life currently contains. Another important thing to do in the contemplation phase is to practice mindfulness. I do plan on doing an entire episode on mindfulness in much more detail, but for now, being mindful essentially means slowing down and noticing what you are thinking and feeling without judgment. Pay attention to your own thoughts and feelings in that moment without condemning yourself for having them. The next step is preparation. For those of us who are overachievers or toxic perfectionists, be careful not to over-prepare. It will lead to burnout and likely even more anxiety by coming up with irrational scenarios that likely would never happen. This is something I struggle with. I have learned that I need to prepare adequately, but then tell myself to stop and let my subconscious do the rest in the background. For example, when I take classes at the university, I get supplies and look at the course and teachers. But if I continue to interrogate the course and teachers, I get wrapped up believing that it will be far too hard, that I will fail without doubt, that I will be misunderstood, and the class will turn out horribly. By stepping back and letting my brain accept that I'm going to take another class, I can ease into it and conquer. But then there's changes that you don't have control over. Or perhaps something happened with the change that you didn't expect. Or maybe it's simply nothing more than adjusting to the change in your regular routine. The most important thing is to recognize that change has happened and learn to accept it. It doesn't mean you have to like it, but more often than not, you can't go back and reverse the change. Unfortunately, this may take a long time for loved ones if they suffer with something called anosognosia. This is the inability to understand that you are ill. This is a very real thing, one that I experienced for a while initially after my accident, but it's vital that you accept the past while continuing to fight for the future. Don't expect stability and don't self-medicate. One thing that I have found extremely helpful is to approach things gradually. If possible, picking me up and just dropping me into a field is not a good idea. For some people, it is, but not for me. I have found that pacing myself, taking my time to adjust to a new thing is much better for me. When something doesn't feel right, it's better to slowly approach it than to abruptly shift the entire world. Like I mentioned with the preparation, sometimes the slow approach has to occur by letting your subconscious have control over dealing with the change. This can be very hard. It's a good thing to quiet your mind and let your fear slip away, but that's not accessible for all of us. That's where I find distraction to be the most helpful. If this change is going to be something that you get asked about frequently, be prepared with a story that is honest, but simple and easy to tell. If you just lost a child, you can expect people to ask you how you are constantly. For a long time, you're not going to be okay, and that is part of the grieving process. But saying something like, every day is a new day, or I'm learning how to function, is not a lie, but it also shouldn't make you continue to explain yourself. One of the big ones for me is, what do you do for work? I haven't come up with a solid story for this question yet, because the truth of the matter is that what I do for work is I fight every single second of my life to function. I go to more doctor's appointments in a week than you probably go to in a year. I am exhausted all the time. I don't have the resources to get up in the morning and do the simplest of things. I do what I can to continue to progress. I write a blog, I host a podcast, I practice faith in the Lord Jesus Christ like it's nobody's business. But no, I do not hold a 9-to-5 job. I do not have the ability to try to explain how difficult survival is for me. So I absolutely should come up with a simple answer in response to the question of what I do, but I haven't found something consistent. Create a strategy for how you deal with stress. I say it like that because it's going to be variable for different people. A list of things that you can do when you're feeling down, stressed, anxious, or just out of control is great. One of my best coping strategies is social support, which I'll get to in a minute. So I create a list of people that I can call. A friend of mine would write down some of her favorite books. Maybe you like coloring or playing guitar. Or if you're crazy like me, maybe you even like to do weird math problems. You can try deep breathing or finding senses around you. For example, what you see, what you smell, what you taste, what you feel, and what you hear. Now let's talk about the social support. Find people who love and support you. Confide in them, telling them your deepest fears, stressors, and ask them to help. They may not always know how to help. They probably won't. This is where the validation episode might help them. Or perhaps you just need someone to consistently check up on you. You will likely need to fight your isolation urge and spend time with people. One thing that often helps is talking it out. For some people, like myself, our brains process things even better when we speak them out loud. So just talking it out can help you sort through things within your own mind. Additionally, it is important to find the humor in things. When you're in the thick of it, though, that is often quite difficult. That's one reason why I love my dad, who injects humor into things frequently. Our favorite thing to do while I was in PT in the hospital after my accident was to quote the comedian Brian Regan. There was nothing funny about the accident or how hard physical therapy is, but I could still laugh because of the amazing humor of Brian Regan. Speaking of talking it out, I'm currently writing an episode distinguishing the difference between the right and left brain. While there is the myth that one hemisphere is predominantly active and the other is dormant for different kinds of people, an individual can predominantly think in one hemisphere. This means that both hemispheres are equally as active for every person, but most of us still default our thoughts in one hemisphere or the other. For example, I am very left-brained, meaning I think very analytically, logically, and I need structure. This also indicates that emotions don't always make sense to me, even my own ones. I also am very aware when my emotions are totally illogical. As a result, it doesn't help to point out the flaws in my thoughts or feelings. Therefore, if you are left-brained like me, it is key to recognize the emotions that you are feeling. Writing them down or saying them out loud is a great way to fuse the left and right brain in these situations. However, if you are right-brained, defined as being more creative, artistic, intuitive, where you see the greater picture more than the details, etc., you should focus more on the logical aspects of the problem. Talking about problems more than your feelings is important if you live most of your life in the feelings area of things. Regardless of where most of your thinking occurs, it is crucial to be kind to yourself, especially in times of high stress. Don't stress about stressing out. Practice Falasha, which again is appropriate self-love. Another coping mechanism is called meaning making. This is where my Why Do Bad Things Happen to Good People series is focused. It can be hard to understand why something so devastating would happen. When this is the case, it is beneficial to focus on your values more than your fears. President Dieter F. Uchtdorf said, "Doubt your doubts before you doubt your faith." We must never allow doubt to hold us prisoner and keep us from the divine love, peace, and gifts that come through faith in the Lord Jesus Christ. Find the fallacies in your doubt and hold true to the knowledge that all things will be made right in the end. This can also be where the beauty of religious support comes in. I believe that religious support should always be both very, very personal, but also strengthened by others. President Nelson said in October of 2023 that the most important message that we should hold on to in these tumultuous days is to think celestial. Thinking celestial is about understanding that we have a Father in heaven who loves us more than we could ever comprehend and wants us to attain all that we possibly could. Unfortunately, that takes hardship. That takes trial. You can't expect wisdom without walking through life's challenging times. When President Nelson says that we need to think celestial in all we do, he encourages that because it will literally change our mindset even during awful situations. We will be rewarded beyond human comprehension for all of our sufferings, especially when they are done for the sake of Christ. As Elder Anderson taught, do not ask, "Why me?" but rather, "What for?" This is one way that we can practice thinking celestial. Another way to increase your resilience to abrupt life changes in a similar vein is to practice gratitude. I cannot stress enough how beneficial a gratitude journal is. Not only does a gratitude journal help you as you write your entries, it helps you see into yourself and be able to revisit that when another devastating change comes. You can start by making an extra effort to notice the positives that are happening in your life. Von Worthen said, "Gratitude is a positive experience that comes from recognizing gifts or blessings and feeling thankful. It is also an attitude, a way of perceiving life, in which individuals are willing to receive and acknowledge the beneficial actions of others on their behalf. Those who consistently display such an attitude are said to have a grateful disposition. Gratitude is also a habit that can be cultivated, causing one to focus on the blessings of life. Finally, gratitude can be defined as a coping response to challenging or difficult circumstances." He then goes on to describe an experience he had that was discouraging. But instead of getting depressed and giving up, he focused on the people he had to help him, the strength he received from Father in heaven, and that he learned through that experience to stay dependent on the Lord. President Hinckley taught about gratitude in this way. "Gratitude is a sign of maturity. It is an indication of sincere humility. It is a hallmark of civility. And most of all, it is a divine principle. Gratitude is the beginning of civility, of decency, and goodness, of a recognition that we cannot afford to be arrogant. We should walk with the knowledge that we will need help every step of the way." Finally, the thing that has helped me the most, in some ways, is a compilation of all of the above, but in other ways, it's something totally different. The final coping mechanism is what I call personal restoration. It is about finding out who you really are. You must rediscover things about yourself that you've always known. This is about tapping into your inner spirit, the peace that has been you long before you came to this earth. This will be different for everyone. When a big change comes and hits you, it feels like you are in the middle of a great windstorm trying to grasp the branches of a tree. In these moments, that is when it is most crucial to return to the trunk. Ground yourself in the trunk of the tree. Then you can start building the leaves and branches. Or, as my neuropsychologist puts it, approach change with a skeleton structure. Something that can be flexible and worked with, but the fundamentals are there and they are solid. As you begin to feel more like yourself again, you can start to build the muscles, the heart, the brain, etc. But until you have the structure in place, the other organs can't do a whole lot. So how do we do this? Well, I'll tell you what I've been doing over the last number of weeks. Listening to music that I have loved since I was 12 years old has reminded me of who I am and what my values are. Music has helped me to realize that I have always been a strong, valiant woman, and nothing can change that, even when I am having an identity crisis. I have gone back and read in old journals, specifically my Tender Mercies journal, peeking into my thoughts and remembering experiences I had before I felt like I had lost my identity tells me that I have always been a deep thinker, especially when I write. And so while I feel like I don't know anything about me anymore, reading words that I wrote in my own handwriting tells me that deep inside, I know a lot more than I currently feel. Talking to others, sometimes asking them to help remind me of my unique characteristics, has also been very helpful. Taking things slowly and not expecting myself to accept everything all at once has been crucial. Reestablishing my rhythm and finding the peace in my quiet moments, but also the joy in the times that I see others. Going throughout my day like nothing changed at all is something that I have to do in order to let my brain begin to wrap around the whole idea. So the personal restoration is, in simple terms, this. Don't stress about having to embrace the change all at once. Get back to you. Find the core of your very being. Return to what makes you the unique person that you are, your true foundation. Then build on that foundation and move forward from there. Thanks for listening. Please share this podcast with anyone you know, as I hope that no one will have to struggle by themselves, feel hopeless, alone, or out of options. Send any questions you would like me to answer to afteryou'vefallen@gmail.com, no apostrophe. Check out the official Instagram page. You can check out my blog for more information, shannonblackham.blogspot.com, and visit my personal YouTube page or follow me on my personal Spotify for great music that has blessed me in my life. Come back every Monday for a new episode.